2-month leave of absence, and now that the days are longer and the days are warmer as well, we're restarting, and we are very happy to have Miro, who is the winemaker at Trentadue and has his own brand called Miro. And we are also with Chris Bowland, who is the regional director of Atlas Vineyard Management. But Chris is also our color commentator.
I'm Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson.
Yes, exactly. He is. So please entertain us today, Chris.
You go, Johnny. Excellent, excellent.
So we are starting with some rosé. It's a rosé of Sangiovese, Miro. Now I have to say, Miro, you've been a real sort of icon in Sonoma County. Wow. You've actually been in the industry as long as I have.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
We've both been in it for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're well known for your wines. You've also been a contributor to the community. And didn't today you just get back from a wine judging competition?
Yep, San Francisco Chronicle.
That's a big one.
It is the largest in the
So-
United States, yeah.
So it is really difficult to judge wines. There's a reason that I am not a judge. I actually get palate fatigue rather quickly. I used to
Yeah.
judge a long time ago, but how many wines did you taste today?
Believe somewhere between 80, maybe 100, because we did an extra 2 flights at the end because we were very efficient. The other panelists were Christopher Gorman and Wilfred Wong.
Oh wow! So you're in the
yeah.
elite panel.
So we were pretty efficient and finished earlier. So then we did a couple extra flights because some of the panels were getting overwhelmed. And it is the largest competition. It has been in the United States for several years now. Usually over 7,000 wines. And
Crazy.
about a group of 50 plus judges, and it takes 3.5 days.
Wow.
Okay,
to
so here
do
we.
it. So this is, yeah, that's Orange County actually, they're right there.
So it's 50 judges with
Yeah.
7,000 wines.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how hard it is to judge a wine competition.
Yeah, especially when you, that's, yeah, some of the older days from San Francisco Chronicle. It is hard, especially when you have some heavy red wines. And you know how it is. You put a flight of 10 to 12, and toward the end of the flight, yes, the palate kind of gets tired. So we have little tricks, a little bit of water, bread, sometimes little pieces of roast beef that have no spices in it whatsoever. So just a little protein to make it a little bit easier.
My last competition I judged, I kept my own Merlot from getting sweepstakes. Like I was like, I kept it from getting being a contender. I was like, oh my gosh, this wine has way too much oak. And actually,
That's
Nick
It
Goldschmidt
happens. It
said,
happens.
you're such a rookie. You always taste your own wines before you judge the competitions. I know you would never do that,
If
but
you do recognize it, because it's not that easy.
it's hard.
I've had,
How do you keep from just being hammered by the end?
Oh, he's wasted right now.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
what? Spitting.
Spitting,
You
yeah.
have to, and you can tell the rookies. Usually on this one we don't have that many, but in other wine competition you can see first timers or people with not so much experience. They do get hammered.
Yeah.
Or pretty tipsy.
Or pretty inebriated, yeah.
I mean, it's impossible if you.
So
you
is it
swallow.
so in that case, is it better to be at the front end of the competition or the back end?
Well, I think I haven't been part of this, but I would imagine somebody with a better palate and an experienced palate like you they'd be specific about what you judge, like high-end Cabernets, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you get seniority, then you can.
So you
kinda-
weren't doing white Zinfandel flights?
No, we actually did some rather disappointing flight of Pinot Noirs, up to $58 a bottle, and we had a hard time giving gold medals and double golds and whatever. It was just really bizarre.
Okay, so people ask this all the time, and now we have an expert who can answer this question. Are you were not told to give out a certain number of gold medals?
No.
Like absolutely not.
No.
It's completely up to and you judge in a group of 3 or 4, I assume?
Judges, yes, at least 3 to 5 on this competition. Others, such as Orange County, it's usually 5. And it's absolute. We are not even allowed, in some of them, we're not even allowed to discuss the wines unless there's a problem. Then we can request another one, another sample.
You mean you don't discuss the wines with each other?
No, it's not a forum on that one. The San Francisco Chronicle today and yesterday, it is a forum. So we can discuss the wines. Of course, we don't know what they are. And we can influence each other, up or down, positive or not. And they usually try to pair a winemaker with a retailer, writer, any kind of other wine professional. So it's kind of an unwritten rule that the winemakers were the stingiest with the scores.
Oh,
And
really?
that's why they don't want to put 2 winemakers in the same group because
They'll fight all day
It's going to
long.
be a problem. Well, sometimes. So, and I will never forget early when I started judging, when I got in the circus, Ben Pierce.
Oh yeah, absolutely. From Bottle Barn.
Yeah, I was in a panel with him, and one of the wines, I was just shredding it to pieces. So this is blah, 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 this and that and the other. And then Ben says, I agree with you, but I can sell the crap out of this wine. And then all of a sudden it just kind of hit me that there is another side. It's not just the winemaking and the being critical and being,
Oh yeah.
finding faults and then fix them. if
No,
you
that's
can.
a really good point.
Ben, on the other hand, is on the retail, so he sees a lot of wines. He sees what people like, and for that price point, for this, what this wine is, he concluded, yes, it may have some faults, but he can sell a lot of it, and there's a public for it, which will embrace it and love it. And that kind of gave me a different angle of the world of wine.
Do you keep that in mind then when you're judging something? Do you think you look at obviously the quality price ratio?
Right. If on this competition we know the price points, the price range, so it's almost inevitable when the wines get more expensive, we get more critical, because the people. So if we say this is the best of class, this is a great wine, gold medal. Yes, but for that price point, it has to be perfect. It has to be the best it can be. So there is no wiggle room for faults and imperfections and this and that, because people should not be deceived. That's the pure thought about wine competition, is you guiding.
Oh, you're
hopefully,
guiding
people
buyers
toward the wine, right? You're guiding the buyers, and you give them an idea that if something is worth gold medal, it is worth that gold medal.
Miro, how do you deal with a situation where your palate feels like it's not a wine for you, but yet it's well made? So how much of your own palate is influencing the score versus are you trying to divorce yourself from that some way, somehow?
How do you stay objective, not subjective? Well, I mean, at Trentadue, for good or bad, I make so many different wines, way too many SKUs, and this is always a problem. I can't even tell you. I think it's up to 28 now, and that's for a 20,000 case winery. So I'm exposed to a lot of varieties, so I have personal experience working with those particular varieties. There are others that I'm not experienced with. For instance, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was the West Coast or East versus West wine competition. So we had a lot of wines from the East Coast, a lot of hybrids, a lot of blends between vinifera's and hybrids. And by now I do have experience tasting these wines. I never made any of those, obviously. And it just judge them for the pure hedonistic, I guess,
Right.
effect of the wine, and is it pleasant? Is it well made?
So
is there any faults? So the faults are always the same. I mean, there will be BA and microbial issues, so this and that.
But you don't have a frame of reference for the varietal integrity.
For some, I don't. If I never tasted them before, or if I've never made the wine, I don't know what the grapes look like. It's just a pure pleasure. Is this pleasant? Would it be pleasant for other people too, not just me? And what kind of food might go with it? You just kind of keep it in mind. And for instance, East Coast wines, some of these so many different hybrids, they're very flavorful. They're just full of aromatics, almost unbelievable aromas that they almost feel fake. It's like, this cannot be. I mean, for us in this world of premium wine, and then they're very pleasant, and some of them are very sweet too, but they also have a high acid. So if that's in balance, they're very pleasant. And obviously there's a lot of people that drink this kind of wines, maybe not here, maybe not everybody, but they make a lot of it and they sell them.
Yeah, so there are 28 different types of wine made at Trentadue, and so I assume for your own brand, you make things that are near and dear to your heart, more so than...
Yes. All right, so if we kind of go back 30 some years ago, coming back from Europe, I was very much in the dark with some varieties. For instance, Petit Syrah and Zinfandel, which are very common around here, especially Zinfandel. So when I started at Dry Creek, a friend of mine who later became a friend of mine, at that time they were kind of skeptical of who am I and what am I doing here, because they've never seen anybody from the Eastern Bloc, right? And joking aside, they thought, oh, I could be a KGB agent or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of sort of a testing, right? And Phyllis, Phyllis.
Oh yeah.
She was my mentor, and she was a cellar master at Dry Creek, and I reported directly to her. And she was a strict lady. I mean, she was very, when we do business with, it's business all business. But then when we drink, it's all fun. So one time she gave me a glass of wine in a lab, and I'm like, oh my God, there's another test coming up here. So she said, tell me what this is. So I'm smelling it, I'm looking smart, I'm swirling, I have no clue. And my English, my accent at the time was much heavier. So I was able to mumble, this tastes kind of wild and primitive. And she said, did you say primitivo? With my KGB training, I knew I was onto something. And I said, yes. And she goes, wow, you are good. Because this is the other name for Zinfandel. At the time, there was...
That's funny.
So...
That's hilarious.
And I thought I missed something in our ampelography classes. Zinfandel absolutely did not ring the bell. Petit Syrah, I even tried to correct Larry Levin during harvest when I saw Petit Syrah, the first pump overs, and its stuff is black, looks like petrol. And I asked Larry, what is this? And he said, this is Petit Syrah. I said, you mean Syrah? He goes, no, I mean Petit Syrah.
Exactly.
I'm like, uh-oh, I
It's
missed
the little
another
Syrah.
class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in our ampelography books, in honesty, the Zinfandel was mentioned, very small chapter that says, commercially insignificant grape from Puglia or something like that, and it's called Primitivo, not Zinfandel. And Petit Syrah was not there at all.
That's funny.
So since then, I fell in love with those two varieties because to me they were new. They were United States. They were California.
They are.
Yeah, very much so.
Both of them can be made so expressive, as big as the world. Like America, the bigger the better. You can shape them in something just. And at the time, Zinfandel, the early days in ZAP, I got involved through Dry Creek, and that led me on to board of directors of ZAP, and I've been on it for, 10 years
Well,
now.
and ZAP is Zinfandel Advocates and Producers, and
yeah.
it is the big organization to promote Zinfandel, and quite honestly, Zin would not even remotely have the stature it has without that organization.
Yeah.
We're going to move on. This Trentadue Rosé was very
It's
good.
lovely.
So
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
dry, and Sangiovese was
move
one
on
of the
to
varieties that
Miro.
I'd never worked with until I got into
the Rosé.
Trentadue. Yeah. So last vintage, I believe it went to the sweepstakes in one of these local competitions. In 2015, actually won the sweepstakes of the Chronicle.
The Rosé did?
It was the best
Wow.
rosé out of almost 400.
Well, it is. It's a pretty rosé.
It's beautiful.
181 cases. Wow, that is small production.
Yeah, well, everything was short last year, and I also use Sangiovese for other wines. So I even bled it heavily. I bled them almost 25%.
And so you signate.
To
So
get, yeah.
So there are two different ways to make rosé. Basically, you can either press the grapes right away, basically make a red wine like a white wine, or what Miro did with this is you crush the fruit and then bleed the juice off, and so
Right.
then you get more concentration of the skin and the berries in the tank itself.
Yeah, you get a little bit
Basically.
more control with the bleeding. It depends what kind of color you want. You can drain it right away. You have a little bit of skin contact with it. I like the pressing too. I made it both ways, and I like both ways. I mean, it's similar. I think it comes down to fermentation, how cold you're going to ferment it, what kind of yeast you're going to use, because there's not a whole lot of flavor in the juice at the time. So the yeast, I found one that works really well, but it takes forever. And I fermented really, really cold, so it takes
So
almost
cold
30
and
days.
slow. So
yeah.
cold and slow.
Cold
gets
and
you
slow. Keep the
more,
esters in.
Yeah, exactly. Gets you more complexity, more flavors.
It's
And actually, there are some. I'm sure you've done this before. Have you ever had a vineyard? It's not getting ripe, and they want to take it off, so they take it off early to make rosé.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Sure.
that's another technique.
Yeah.
And then when the yields are lower, it'll get ripe faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some places they do a first pass to lighten the crop, make rosé out of that, and then leave the rest to hang to red wine. That's not the ideal way of doing it, but it's been done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that aren't ideally done, but as long as the outcome's good.
I like Sangiovese for rosé. The only problem is it gets too fruity, too candy-like, and sometimes I actually put some of it in neutral oak barrels just to tone down that exuberant, get it off the candy and the bubble gum, and get it a little bit more complex. So I keep some of it in stainless steel drums and some of it in oak barrels.
Oh.
But it's really fruity, and the pH of this thing is like 3.3 barely.
Well, I've always been under the impression with your winemaking that given that you work for a winery that has it's small, but it still has relatively large case production. You make all these different varietals, but your winemaking is it's complicated. You don't have to go into those neutral. You're adding more work for yourself to make the wine better. Basically,
I'm a masochist. Everybody was telling me that. And,
that's
maybe
what
when
I
I get a
understand.
little older, I'll slow down.
So, yeah, so the reason Miro's quality is so good is definitely, what do they say about being in a cellar? It's not the things people see you do, it's what you're doing when nobody's looking.
Right, and that extra step.
Exactly.
When you really want to go home and you're just really tired, but if you don't, and if you do that thing that you have to do, it's going to be better.
So you turn the truck around, go back to
Yeah,
the winery.
yeah.
Okay, now we are having one of your personal wines that
Yeah.
you make, and these are available commercially.
They are. A lot of
Oh
them
my
went
gosh,
on
Chris,
to,
I'm so sorry.
they were sold on premise. Well, the last year or so, not
Meaning,
so many.
meaning restaurants.
Restaurants, right. So, yes, they are available mostly on my website. I do distribute nationwide in a few states because I don't make that much wine. A few target states. And locally, Bottle Barn, it's covering pretty well, pretty much all of them. And this will be on the display because it just won Best of Class from a West Coast wine competition from 2 weeks ago. It
Wow,
was
congratulations.
Top of the line. It went into the sweepstakes round, but it lost to somebody. I forgot which was the red wine. Yeah.
And just to understand how it works, all the wines that get gold medals are eligible for best of class, and it's going to be the best in that category. And then they
Right.
take all the best of class wines to determine sweepstakes.
Right. Yes. So you get gold medals, double golds, and then the group of the panel will issue which one of those is the best of class, and then it goes to the sweepstakes round.
And do all the judges vote on sweepstakes typically,
Um,
or do they just take like the elite?
San Francisco, no. Well, the San Francisco Chronicle, everybody is allowed. Everybody that's a judge is invited to participate. Some judges do not. Most of the time, it's all of them, and it's really overwhelming. I mean, now we have another panel that pre-screens a lot of these best of class, because in the past there used to be, I mean, literally 130 wines in front of you, and there's so many glasses that you have to get up to get to the last one on, you know, the furthest away from you, and they span away, I mean, more than an arm's reach. I mean, you can imagine that many glasses, and it's just overwhelming. And this happens at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Well,
So you go from champagne to port in less than an hour,
wow.
all through those rosés and whites and sweet, and yeah. So is it correct? You know, I mean, how else are you going to do it? It's just impossible. So now we have a judge, a panel selected group that pre-screens the wines, so it limits the amount of wine that actually end up for the final round, and that makes it a little bit more bearable.
So this got, did you say best of class?
Yeah.
And was it in
What are we
the-
drinking, by the way?
You're so demanding over there.
It's a Grenache and Syrah.
Cuvée Sasha.
Oh yeah, Sasha is my oldest daughter, who now is 18. So I stopped making this when she was 2. And I also have another daughter, and her name is Mira, and I'm yet to figure out how I'm going to put that on the label. Mira is something. There is a winery in Napa that's called Mira. We haven't talked yet. It's very close, but there might be some problem.
Is that the female version of Miro?
No, Miro is actually short from Miroslav.
Ah.
So my full name, but it does exist on its own. And almost all of the Slavic countries, the name Miro is present in Poland, Czech, Slovenia, Slovakia, whatever, Bulgaria, Russia. Russia not so much, but Serbia has a lot of them, Croatia, there's a lot of Miros.
So you said there's a Syrah Grenache blend, is that what you said?
It's Grenache Syrah.
Grenache Syrah.
Very small vineyard on the shores of Lake Mendocino. The grower actually, it's on the back of his yard, and it goes from the house to the water. And no tilling, no, very minimal operation. It's less than an acre.
Oh, really?
So you were raised in Bulgaria
Uh-huh.
and then moved here and started your career in the wine industry. Were you exposed to the wine industry when you were in Bulgaria?
I never worked in the winery. I actually never worked full-time or for real. When we were going to school back then, back there, we were not allowed to actually work full-time. The only time that was possible and actually forced, if you fail a semester, or if you fail the year, then you have to repeat the year, and during that time you have to actually work for 8 months. And if that happens one more time, you're expelled.
Really?
Yeah,
So they
it was-
incentivize you to
Right.
study.
So to study, they actually paid us a stipend, and we were also almost it was actually mandatory to sign a contract with your future employer.
Now,
Wow.
would this have been high school that
No,
you're
that's
talking?
college.
Oh, it is college. So, okay.
So it behooved us to get a contract, because then you get a stipend. So the sooner you get it, you can sign a contract, because you have to work somewhere anyway. And if you don't find your own contract, then the government will sign you up with some place where nobody wants to go.
And do you apply at different places, or do they just assign things?
You do apply, yeah. They can screen people and see who they want.
So before you're even your what we would call freshman year,
Right.
you're already job hunting.
The rule was after your second year, it was
Second
the last
year.
time you have to. I mean, you can sign it from the first year, yeah, freshman. And I was studying agronomy, viticulture, specializing in viticulture. Wine was it was not the major. Yeah, that's what you guys call it. So we did make wine there, which was actually kind of fun. The school had a large chunk of land, and we were producing everything from whatever we were specializing in. Everything was produced and sold. And the vineyards, I think, was probably in the range of maybe 50 acres.
Oh wow, that's
And
pretty
every
big.
2-3 rows is some other variety. So we did all the work on it, from pruning, we harvested, we made wine in these glass 100-liter like demijohns. So this was the viticulture. This was the agronomy school. In the same town, there was a what do they call it? Basically, all the beverages and foods, including wine and spirits and beer, they were in a separate school. And the winemakers from there barely had any clue about. They called the grapes the raw material. So it was that. Now they got smarter and they kind of combined the two. Kind of same thing happened to Davis, I remember.
Well,
It was separate.
at the junior college where I went,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
I remember doing the very similar thing. We would go to the Shome Farm and prune and sucker and all that, and Rich Thomas would teach us how to make wine, and we made some of the most awful Cabernet Franc you've ever had in your life.
Cabernet Franc is tricky.
I think we ended up using it for paint remover on cars or something like that. But it was a
Little
fun
vegetal.
experience, though.
I don't remember how bad the wines were, but we drank them. In college. I mean,
We were in college, right?
and also just the culture there is that everybody makes wine at home, pretty much everybody, and pretty much everybody distilled something one way or another. Whether you have a still or not, there was a way. And the government, the communists, they actually try to tax that and try to actually forbid it. And they knew that this is going to be worse than if they do something like more taxes or unemployment. No, that's fine. People can take a lot, but just don't take my still.
Yeah.
So they figured that out and
That's
said,
right.
all right,
People
just
keep
keep
their
your
still.
Yeah.
That's funny.
In my grandparents lived in this very rural area. They were farmers all their lives. And we made wine, we made grappa, we made all the, compotti and tomato sauces and everything. It's like a little farm. And it's not to be cute. This was the life. That's not just because we want to have homemade stuff. That's what
how
it is.
you get your food.
Sausages and that. Yeah, you can imagine. They raise pigs. I mean, these two old people, they produce so much food in such a small amount of land that I wanted to be a doctor, but I think growing up in a farm, what made me change my mind, plus I met a girl, and
Yeah, that's how that goes.
that helped push me into the other direction, so I never made it to med school. Yeah.
Well, this is really delicious, Miro.
Thank you. It's young. I think it's about 5 months.
What made
in
you
the
pick
bottle.
a 1-acre vineyard on the shores of Lake Messina?
It was total coincidence. Peter Chevalier, they have their own growing.
They do, yeah.
Right. So I used to source it up from Lake County, from High Valley, and for years and years and years. And they had all three varieties, although they all ripen at different times. So I had to drive all the way to Lake County, and the owners we had some issues. I mean, I'm a very, very patient man, but at some point I just had to say, all right, that's enough. So it was that kind of thing. So I started looking for Grenache, and I couldn't find any around that it was available at the time. We're talking 15 years ago. And somehow somebody recommended, a friend of mine, a winemaker, that there's somebody who has a little bit. And that's how it started.
Well, the hard part about one of the challenging things, as both of you know, is when you choose a vineyard, just the driving time, because you have to drive to check the vineyard, and you have to, you have to check the grapes.
It's great if you can rely on the owner to make a decision, but if you know each other really well, and if they're in the capacity to do that, but you know how it is. You have to taste your own grapes.
You only accidentally trust somebody to make a picking decision once in your career.
Right. And then you don't do it.
And it never happens again.
You're
I don't
absolutely
know.
right.
I think we're good at making them. Us vineyard guys, we're pretty good winemakers.
You always
Watch out.
Oh no! It's like it's time. It's going to rain. What are you
That's
waiting
right,
for?
that's right.
I don't have people. We got to pick now.
So, Miro, can I ask you a question that I love to ask winemakers? I know that's an open-ended question, isn't it? But have you ever in your career made a wine that was commercially successful that you actually didn't enjoy?
Oh, all the time. And
Yeah.
actually today we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And it was about,
Is it because the owners wanted you to make something and that type of situation?
it was one of my, I remember a couple of occasions when it was one of my wines that I wasn't very fond of. And I was going to change the vineyard.
It was a Miro wine?
It was a Miro wine. And then it did really, really well. And I'm like, well, what do I know? I'll
Well,
take it.
there's 6 billion palates in this world, right?
True.
And everyone's going to like something a little bit different.
I had some wines from Trentadue that I wasn't very fond of, and then the Spectator rated them really high, and it was during the time when they were on a crusade against high alcohol. It was a Zinfandel, and it was flammable. That was 16.9.
Wow.
And I was very, very. I reconsider. I mean, I didn't want to run it through dealkinate and all that stuff. It actually tasted fantastic. It was very concentrated stuff. And so I bottled it
you
anyway.
can, just so people know, you can actually remove alcohol from wine if you choose to do that.
Right.
But I'm sure it just didn't have, you know, they were getting their money's worth too, right?
I only done that once, and I never went back to do it. It was just too much work.
To take the alcohol out.
And it, you know, the sweet spot, you know how we do the sweet spotting it, end up to be over 14% anyway. You know, we tried below that and end up to be that the sweet spot was 14.8 and the wine was 15.5. It's like, you know.
That was one of the most interesting experiences of my tasting career, was to be involved with a wine where we did a sweet spots trial like that. And to find that it wasn't linear, it wasn't like the more you up or down you went, wasn't better or worse. It kind of did this as you went through the different alcohol levels, and that was really fascinating.
It's like finding the right yield in the vineyard.
Right.
You know, 3 tons to the acre is not a magic number.
Right.
At some point, you're just losing money. You're not making better wine.
Right.
If it was an infinite progression or regression, then one cluster provided, you're going to make Chateau Petrus every day.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and what they're talking about is just literally lining up wines with different alcohol levels. I mean, the same wine with different alcohol levels, and at some point in time, it's got the perfect amount of flavor and balance, and it is
it's
interesting.
It's a
It's very
fun
interesting. I
experience.
mean, when you line them up and you see the decreasing the alcohol, like you said, you get to a point. I mean, they call it sweet spot because there will be at one point where for that particular wine, with its structure, that particular alcohol is going to make it taste the best. Yeah, but then is that before or after lunch?
Right, right. And at the end of the day, or before 9 a.m.
Right.
What do we have another one of your
Yeah,
wines
we have.
to try?
Let's see. Oh, let's try this one.
I
This
love
is
the
another.
fact that you have the Trentadue and Miro here.
Yeah,
That's
I mean
nice.
they're all my children, right?
Yes.
So Lastoria is something that we started at Trentadue with my first vintage, or after. My first vintage was 1999, and it was a really good year. I don't know if you remember. I got lucky
Yeah.
because it was a good vintage. And our marketing group at the time says, "Oh, we can come up with Trentadue Reserve and this and that." And Trentadue wasn't in a very good standing at the time.
This is our
Flowers.
yes, yes.
And I haven't tried it. This is a natural cork, so I hope it's okay. Today
Oh.
we had cork wines with every flight. We had one cork wine.
Wow.
Well, and
Yeah.
there are these poor volunteers who are just corking all day long.
right.
Yeah.
Putting
but
in
I
bags.
switched to DM 3 years ago, and no corks yet.
Yes, so there are
Yeah.
basically. Say
I know, it's
the
a whole
word.
different subject.
I don't know. I do want to go down that cork
Yeah, it's
rabbit
a
hole.
whole different
Now let's talk
subject.
about the wine.
Okay, so we started.
Yourself,
So
Chris.
we were looking at names. I didn't want to call them Trentadue Reserve, so I said let's try something proprietary. And of course, you got to make sure that it's not trademark, it's not been taken. So we had, and it sounds Italian, and so forth and so forth. So we had about 14 different things to choose from that we knew after we made a quick search that they're not trademarked. So Lastoria, I liked it a lot. It sounds Italian. It is Italian, means the story, the history, tradition. Easy to pronounce, and it's a conversation piece. So it says, what does that mean? What is the story? Well, let me tell you. So, and we started with Zinfandel first. That was another thing. There was a Zinfandel that I made, and Trentadue is an old place. You can imagine the equipment. They're moving from Dry Creek to Trentadue. It was like a time machine. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? When I
time
look around,
machine?
I took 2 weeks off, and then I came back right before harvest. And I'm looking around. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to crush this year? So anyway, so we started put the grapes.
Because you went from Dry Creek,
Yeah, from Dry
correct?
Creek
And
to
they were
Trentadue.
probably
Yeah.
a little more. Okay, go on with your story. Excuse me.
So we're fermenting Zinfandel, things are going just fine. And the jacket, so the cooling jacket on a tank, one of the valves, the solenoid valve, got stuck overnight and brought the temperature back down to about 37 degrees.
Which kills the yeast.
It kills the yeast, stops the fermentation. Like, okay, now what are we gonna do? So I can chill the tanks, but I can't warm them as easily or at all. So pouring water over the tank, no insulation, so that kind of helped. But creating hot water was a problem too. I mean, it's a long, I got stories. So finally, I warm up the
So
tank.
you're just trying to do anything you could to warm up the tank,
Right.
with any tools you had.
Right, anything possible. I even found out in the boneyard, and they're really good at buying things on sale, auctions, a lot of stuff. And I had no idea, but I just wandered around the property, and I did find a heat exchanger. In the outside, it looked terrible, but inside, I looked at, and it's a stainless steel tubes, but it's not a must exchanger. It's tiny little stainless steel tubes inside,
Wow.
surrounded by a larger pipe that you can run hot water through it, and it's a serpentine, so it works very efficiently.
That,
but the
that you
wine
put
has
inside the tank?
no, it just pump it through. It's
Oh, pump
long,
it
it's
through.
huge. But it has to be wine. You cannot have any solids, no seeds, no skins, nothing. So I have to,
Oh my
find a screen
gosh.
of some sort. And I remember there was a salesman came at the time from, he was from Switzerland. He worked for a filtration company. An older gentleman. He came in and looked at it, looked at all this rig, and he goes, only a Bulgarian can come up with something like this. I know, but it works.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How did
So-
you obviously
So you pumped it, right?
well
I went through a
yeah, but you
screen
had to
really
get
slowly.
like every single seed out.
everything.
That's
So I went
crazy.
through a screen, like as if you're pressing the wine, right?
Uh-huh.
So I went through a screen, and slowly there was one pump, one Japsko with the plastic impeller, tiny. So I run that through the heat exchanger and back into the tank, and it took forever, but got it warm up. And now it's time to start fermenting again, but it had enough sugar so it could overheat if I don't turn the jacket back on. I can't repair it, so I crossed my fingers and turned the jacket back on. And it did cool it, but not that bad. So finally I got it to ferment. And I co-fermented with Petit Syrah because one tank was too short and it wasn't enough, so I added something to the Zinfandel, so 10-15%. Long story short, I entered the wine in some competition and won the sweepstakes.
Oh my gosh.
So-
Would I do this again? No.
Why is this wine not called Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
Well, I mean, there's an explanation. As you know, when you stress the yeast, they produce a lot of glycerol to protect themselves, and you're stressing it, but nobody does that on purpose. It's just it's just counterintuitive. You can't just chill your fermentation. What's going to happen? Is it going to start? I mean, do you have the time to deal with it? Yeah. So
So you've
Anyway.
never tried that again intentionally because it
No.
worked? No?
No, I would never put myself through that again. That's what he's saying.
that was too much work, and the result is not for sure. I mean, it could backfire.
Right.
Big time, and you get stuck fermentation, you get a lot of BA, and you get blah, 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 and they have a huge problem in your cans.
So does the sorry, we're obviously outside, so it's loud here. Does the hero of our story, the heat exchanger,
Wow.
obviously
It's
still
there.
exist?
It's still there.
You've never used it again?
We we use it quite often. Actually, last year, the first time ever, we got a glycol heater, official one that you actually run the jackets and the tanks and all that.
Well, it'd be great for a restart.
It's good. I mean, it works. It's, if in the,
I mean, for like a pressed restart.
yeah.
Huh. Interesting. I'm
should
sort of an
patent
equipment
it.
junkie.
The Miro heat exchanger.
The Miro.
Oh, it's
We call it the Miro method.
yeah. So from that point on, before I look to buy something, I look in a boneyard, and the odds are I will find something that will work.
Are you saying boneyard or barnyard?
Boneyard.
It is boneyard,
Yeah.
where all the things are
Where everything
cast
goes to
aside.
die,
Right.
and then all is left is the bones. Usually pieces of steel and aluminum and stainless and all
Rusty
that kind
stuff,
of
Oh yeah.
things you don't want to throw away because you may need it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, my cellar guys, I would get mad at them, like, why are you keeping all this stuff? And then that stuff does come in handy.
Little bubble gum and duct tape, and it'll go put it back to work.
I know.
Leo was really good at collecting stuff like that. But there was a barn that it was just stuffed, and he didn't even know what he has there. And there was some real treasures you find once in a while.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I was old school. I mean, these guys went through depression, so they were thrifty. no doubt.
So I'm sorry, Miro, was this 100% Zinfandel?
No, this is actually a Meritage.
It's 36% Malbec, 35% Merlot, 15 Cabernet, and 6% Sangiovese.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're telling a story about the Zinfandel, and I was.
Oh yeah, so the Lastoria started with Zinfandel, then we expanded through all the varieties. So now Lastoria, it was it still is. It's the best we can produce, but the last 3 years the things kind of switched. So the Trentadue label is the more upscale, and the Lastoria is distributed.
Oh, I love that idea. So the varietal changes. It just is the best.
Yeah, that blend is it varies. Whatever tastes the best. I mean, for instance, the next vintage I remember was all Cabernet based, and some years the Merlot is fantastic. The Merlot out there is really good, so I switch it and base it on Merlot.
That's a really
Today we tasted blends, and we were having this discussion that we sort of rediscovered. The blends are popular now, apparently, again, or maybe.
As long as you have a cool name.
Yeah. So we were discussing that we actually rediscovered the wheel, something that in Europe has been done for hundreds of years. You know, you make blends from a region. You don't produce a varietal per se. You just make the best wine you can. And we may go in that direction too. I mean, for instance, Russian River, it's known that pretty much it's going to be Chardonnay and Pinot. It's going to be maybe the next Burgundy, who knows? But it's probably inevitable.
Now, it looks like we have a video of you in the vineyard today,
Oh,
I think, according to.
roll tape,
I just want to see
cue
it.
music.
All right, here we are. The vintage is 2019. Cure estate being harvested right now. There's some pickers around me. And again, very nice, calm morning. The grapes are very ripe, as they should be. Seeds are nice and brown. It's almost kind of trying to. It's cloudy, but it's not going to rain, which is a good thing. The end of the season. It's gonna go into the history pretty soon. There you go. Early morning pick. That's the end of it. 303 Zinfandel behind me and all over. Good morning. Harvest is going pretty good so far, fast and furious. I'm at Trentadue Lost Cabernet block, and I'm going to do some sampling. Let's see if it's ready. We have a window for picking tomorrow, and if it's ready, we'll take it. We have a beautiful day with clean air. It's actually it is normal today. Unless the wind changed directions, we should be good. It was good yesterday as well. See ya. Hey, more action. Cuvée Sasha component Grenache just got in. The lonely winemaker. I'm all by myself right now. My crew is scattered all over the county. North, south, us in Cloverdale, we're still okay for now. The wind is blowing in a favorable direction for us. But down behind me, people are not so lucky. It's very windy right now, and that is part of the problem. Here is a giant helicopter. I don't know if you can see it. Fermenting, naturally. Try to keep the generator running. Victor's been refueling it this morning, and all the gas stations are closed. Everything is closed, no power anywhere. Just like in the movies.
So that was during the fires last year.
2019.
That was actually a
19.
combo between 19 and last year.
Last year.
That last, when I was on top of the tanks, that was from 19. And we did run out of, well, we didn't run out of fuel, we ran out of the DEF, the
Yes.
additive.
Yeah.
Well, and what Miro was saying when the video was on is that you stayed behind during the evacuations because you needed to make sure the wine was okay.
The winery
Correct.
was full of almost 600 tons of grapes fermenting, and without chilling, without, fermentations will stop, and we have a whole bunch of problems. And half the crew, like I said, they were south, the other half was north, and I was living in Cloverdale. So Victor Trentadue actually came and spent almost the last of the night. Early in the morning he came in because he was, they evacuated the winery, and he has his place is in Dry Creek. So he had a trailer at the winery, and then the sheriff came in at 2 in the morning and knocked on the door and says, "You guys got to move." So he came to Cloverdale. Cloverdale was still not evacuated. So here we are sitting at 8 o'clock in the morning, perfectly clear day. Cloverdale was like nothing ever happened. So like, what are we doing here? It's harvest time. The winery is fermenting, full of grapes. He goes, "I'm going to try to get to Dry Creek, and if I do, I'll cut across and get to the winery. If I do, I'll call you." I said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." Even the highway was closed at Cloverdale
Yeah.
at some point, but
Yeah.
then they lifted up. So he calls me half an hour later and said, "Let's do it." So we went there. The generator was barely running out on fumes, so we refueled it. We have diesel at the winery, right? And kept it going. Then I got one guy to come in and help with pump overs, and then we spun the tanks once.
Yeah, someone who could get there because a
so
lot of
we did
people
it.
couldn't even.
So me and him did all the pump overs at least once, and then we went home and on, but we kept it going.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have one more wine to
Yeah.
try, and I'd love to try it.
That is.
Yes, it is
Oh
yours.
yeah, Cabernet, right. This is from Pine Mountain, which is a relatively new appellation of Alexander Valley, and portion of it, the mountain, is in Mendocino. So I was one of the winemakers that we wrote letters to TTB and together with a few growers to get it appellated. One of the winemakers was Dennis Malbec.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys know, but he passed. He got in a car wreck, a Frenchman. Anyway, so the requirements that the grapes, the vineyard has to be at minimum 1,600 feet elevation and going all the way to the top of the mountain, which is at 3,200. So this one is at 2,400 feet, and it's actually
2,600 feet. I
yeah,
think.
26. So it's actually a vineyard called Pine Mountain Vineyard.
I've been there. It's beautiful.
The other one that I used for years and years was called Silverwood, and the vineyard got sold to Coppola. So now the big players there are KJ. They bought this brand called Capture.
Capture, yes.
Right.
Or maybe it's Capture.
Yeah, Capture or Capture, something like that. And they also, we used to share the grapes with Coppola, and at some point they liked them a lot, and they bought the vineyard. They invited me to continue to buy the grapes, and then the price went up, and you know how that goes.
Yes,
So-
we do know how that goes. I loved when you casually say that. Yes.
So I went and got the grapes from Pine Mountain Vineyard, which is further northeast.
Lovely.
And
This is really delicious. I
Thank you.
love this
so
wine.
the little bunches that we saw in the video,
Is
those
it
are actually
from-
from there.
Wow.
I
It's
mean,
beautiful.
it's not a grower's vineyard.
nightmare. No,
This is
absolutely.
The
This is-
tiny, the berries are
Teeny
just,
weeny.
but makes good wine.
Oh, this wine is delicious. It's got a lot of, you hear about chocolate characteristics in wine. This really does have,
The high elevation, I mean, one
Deep
thing it does,
chocolate,
it's
dark
above the
chocolate.
fog. Gets a lot of sunshine, and the berries are tiny, and they have a lot of tannin, a lot of thick skins to protect themselves, and they stay small. Sort of like comparing blueberries that you buy in the supermarket and those that you pick in the mountains. So they're tiny in the mountain, the wild ones, and So temperature inversion is huge. I mean, we're talking 50, 60 degrees difference.
Wow.
A diurnal temperature change. It's warmer up there at night. It's colder down in the valley, in the inversion. But during the day, it never gets as hot as it does down in the valley. So that helps, I guess. And it's always windy. There's a lot of air movement. So the grapes do suffer. I mean, there's not a whole lot of soil up there. There's no such thing, actually. It's mostly decomposed shale, rocks.
You've been up there, I
And,
assume.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We used to farm up there for sure.
It's beautiful.
It's so
Gorgeous.
pretty.
I remember
that's a
Dennis-
goat trail to get up there, though.
Yeah, that's Dennis Malbec. When we had some media people up there to explain what is this about, and he was saying that it kind of reminds him of Bordeaux. He grew up there. And I looked around, and we were sitting on top of a mountain in California. I almost can see the ocean from there. It says Bordeaux. And then later on, I asked him, what do you mean by that? I mean, you're on flat land down in Bordeaux. This is a mountain. He goes, well, you know, the way the wines taste and the structure and all that.
Well, this is absolutely delicious. Now, Miro, can people order from your website?
Yeah,
Is it,
we ship everywhere. And
is it
pretty
Miro
much.
Cellars?
MiroCellars.com, yeah.
Well, this is
When you have a fan, Bernie says hello, Miro. I'm looking at the comments on the website.
Bernie?
So say hi to Bernie.
Bernie,
Is it Bernie Orsi?
Orsi?
Scarinzi.
oh, Bernie Scarinzi. Okay, she's,
Oh, Bernadette.
yeah, Bernie.
You know, I
I
just
did buy from Bernie Orsi. I made some Pinot from, oops, well, I'm not supposed to say that, Mike, because, yeah.
It's, can we? I just want to see this. We have one more video. I know we're almost done, but I want to see the snow throw
Oh,
in Minnesota.
oh yeah.
Maybe you could set it up for us, Miro. What are we going to see?
All right,
All right,
Miro,
so
it's
this
29
is-
below zero. Let's see what happens.
You know how you hear when the temperatures drop to a really scary, yeah. All right, so this is okay.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you didn't get it high
I
enough.
forgot, this is a couple of years ago. It got really, really cold. I think the temperature was minus 39 or 38.
Fahrenheit?
So this was actually a boiled water, and when you throw it up in the air, it freezes
I've
on the way
always
down.
wanted to do that.
Wow.
I mean, it's no joke.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, and then the other thing I want to see is the lightsaber girl. Did you say that's your lovely?
I think it was my wife, but yeah, with my distributors from Chicago, I think it was on the backyard. Oh no!
Oh,
Oh,
there we
how did that
go.
bat get there?
Is that Sasha?
No, that's a friend of mine's daughter in New York.
Oh,
I don't know how that got there. All right.
well, everything should enter the lightsaber girl.
I know.
It's perfect.
This was last year. My birthday is February 4th, so I was in New York, and we did a lot of, did a lot of work, and we had a very nice dinner with a bunch of people, and that was pre-COVID. Nobody knew, although the virus was already in New York at the time, but nobody knew. So I came back home, and that was the last time I was on a plane. It's February 6th, flying back from New York last year.
Yeah, my last trip was Kentucky, so
boy.
I remember.
Yeah.
We're almost out of it. Almost out of it.
I know. Well, it has
I
been
hope so.
absolutely delightful to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
And these wines are delicious. So, is the taste room open at Trentadue for
The
outdoor tasting?
Trentadue is open. I don't pour my wines there. Obviously, I can't. But
But if tourists are up here, they can go to Trentadue to taste.
yes, absolutely. Trentadue is open, and by reservations. But I think they also take
Walk-ins.
just walk-ins because we have tons of space. I mean, we do weddings and all that, so we got plenty of outdoors accommodations, and people do come. I mean, I've seen people in the rain, miserable out there, cold, and they're coming. It's like they had it. People had it.
Gotta
Well,
get out.
so this Cabernet is really absolutely delicious. So you should check out Trentadue Wines. Go to the tasting room if you are in wine country, and go to Miro Cellars to try your wines.
Yep.
And from Bulgaria to Sonoma County. I love the story. So thank
story.
you,
A
and
lot of stories.
thank you, Chris, for being
Absolutely.
here.
Glad to
thank
do
you.
it.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, Miro.
Thanks for
Until
having me.
next
Cheers, Jamie.
week, actually, next week we're having Sam Lando, unless it rains. And in the meantime, enjoy wine and enjoy life.